Good morning. How you doing? October 23rd, Wednesday, 2019, or Wednesday, October the 23rd. That's one. 2019. How you doing? Got a bit of a wicked sore throat this morning. I'm not the only one around these parts to be suffering with a bit of a sore throat and a bit of a bug, but we'll soldier on. We'll be okay. Always worry about the voice. Once or twice a year I do lose my voice to these feckin' things. But the usual remedies do apply in these situations. Loads of honey, loads of water, and all the rest of it, yeah. No hot whiskies for me. Never been fond of the hot whiskey and the brown sugar and the cloves and the lemon. I've never liked it. But we'll survive. We'll survive, you know. We're made of stronger stuff than kowtowing or capitulating in the face of a bit of a sore throat. We're made of stronger stuff. The Irish, by the way. I mean the Irish. A very good morning to you. Thanks to those of you chatting away on the live stream there. Nice to know you're up and about. We'll have a look at some of those comments in a few minutes' time. It's been an interesting 24 hours, hasn't it? A number of people have had sworn to support the Richie Allen radio show if I turned out to be correct and that the UK wouldn't leave the European Union on October 31st. You don't have to honour that commitment, by the way. You can welch on your wager if you want. Of course, the UK was never going to leave the European Union full stop, let alone on October 31st. And just in case you've not been following it, couple of things that you might need to know. There were a couple of interesting votes in the House of Commons last night. First and foremost, MPs did vote with the government, did vote with Boris Johnson to approve, or at least to send for a second reading, his withdrawal agreement with the European Union. That was a first. That was seemingly a big deal. Okay, it stopped a run of, how many votes did Boris Johnson lose since becoming Prime Minister? I think he might have lost 7 or 8 or 9 on the spin. But they voted in favour of his Brexit deal with the European Union. But then, not long afterwards, they voted against the government's timetable to get the legislation through the House of Commons in time for that deadline. So on the one hand they said, we'll support your deal, send it for a second reading, send it to committee where all sorts of amendments can be put on it and all the rest of it to water it down. But then they voted against the timetable. So it's basically in stasis at the moment. It's suspended in mid-air. And afterwards, the leader of the House, Jacob Rees-Mogg, it's his business to basically put forward the programme of business in the House of Commons. He said, well, in the next few days, we'll have debates on the Queen's speech. Is this confusing for you? It's not really confusing. There was a Queen's speech where the Queen basically reads out a list of things the government wants to do domestically, right? So Rees-Mogg said after this carnage last night, he said, well, here's the business now for the next few days, and it's all to do with the Queen's speech. Right. European Council President Donald Tusk has said today that the European Union is now in favour, shock horror, of granting an extension to the UK until the end of January next year. It doesn't matter whether I was right all along. It just matters that it's happening. That 3.5 years ago, 17.4 million people, 52% of those who voted to leave. And ever since that day, it has been chipped away at by a Remain Parliament, by a Remain media. And we're just seeing the end of it now, the death of it really. Will there be a general election this side of Christmas? Hard to say. It's probably 50-50 at this stage. But one thing that we know is the UK is not leaving the European Union. There you go. People should be on the streets in massive numbers, not committing wanton acts of violence, not burning down shops, not fighting with one another, but they should be taking to Westminster in their millions, and they should be saying, well, you've got 2 hours now to pack up your belongings and to say goodbye to your friends and colleagues as they depart the building. And once the building is empty, once we are sure that it is empty, we're going to burn it to the fucking ground. That's what should happen. But of course it won't. Because, well, people are too consumed with, too beaten down with, too oppressed with the horrors of negotiating their lives. So they won't do it. And that's the way it'll be. So that's it, really. There's nothing more to be said about that at the moment. It does dominate the front pages of the UK newspapers, as you'll be unsurprised by. Johnson wins landmark Brexit vote but is thwarted on deadline. Is the Financial Times. We can just go through these very quickly because they're all the same. Parliament puts brakes on Johnson's race for Brexit is the headline in The Guardian this morning. A lot of triumphalism around newspapers like The Guardian. The Telegraph, Brexit is in purgatory. It's pretty apt, I would have thought, pretty apt way of describing it. It's in purgatory. It's not going anywhere. And Telegraph. Very interesting stories inside the Telegraph today about Tony Blair and immigration, by the way. And I'll come to those stories, or that story, in a few minutes' time. I'm not whispering, but I'm trying not to give it too much today because the old voice is on the edge. It's a bastard thing, isn't it? For broadcasters. There was a time in my days in commercial radio, if somebody got a bit of a cold, bit of a head cold, they were condemned. They were told you're not to come in, because in radio stations, they're almost hermetically sealed, aren't they? Well, you probably don't know. You might never have seen the inside of a radio station. But because of the soundproofing everywhere, they're almost hermetically sealed. So if somebody comes into work with a bug, every blighter gets it. And before you know it, the primetime schedule of presenters, they're all at home smothering. But anyway. Right. Did we see the Mail, did we? The Daily Mail, trust this lot to turn triumph into disaster. 329 versus 299 supported Boris's deal to proceed to a second reading, to head for committee. And later on, 322 voted against the schedule of business, basically, to make it impossible for it to then proceed. Right. Now we're at the mercy of the European Union, says the Daily Mail. Well, of course, the European Union is delighted and will be only too thrilled, even though they have to get the 27 leaders to go along with it, and even though in theory just one single European Prime Minister can veto it, they won't veto it. Of course not. It's a given, an extension. Going nowhere, you're going nowhere. Okay, tyranny reigns. That's all you need to know. The Metro, Boris puts Brexit bill on hold. Well, he didn't have any choice, really. Not his fault. He's utterly detestable, Johnson, of course. But it ain't his fault. Daily Mirror, PM's Brexit horror. Bid to railroadies deal through by Halloween is blocked by MPs. All the papers going with stories about the royal family today and about the deepening rift. Soap operas are everywhere. Johnson's Halloween Brexit in tatters, iPaper. Told you. Are we going to get a clean sweep here, are we? The Sun? Yeah, but no but. A nod to Vicky Pollard, is it? Catherine Tate? Yeah, but no but. Bojo win, then timetable is wrecked, is that headline. We might have a clean sweep here today. The Express, historic deal, but MPs spoil it with yet more dithering. And another story about the monarchy. Monkeys, the monarchy, all of them. Except for her baby. Her baby is not the monkey. Because if I was to declare him to be a monkey, well, I'd be in the sort of hot water that Danny Baker found himself in. Bunch of morons, the royal family. So we're going for a clean sweep here. The Times. Frustrated PM faces Brexit delay. Okay, it's on the front page. Doctors hail first drug to slow down Alzheimer's. Is an interesting story inside the Times. We might have our first clean sweep since the genesis, since the birth of this shitty programme. The Star. I knew it. I knew there was never going to be a clean sweep. This is a story that came up yesterday. Somebody stole a cardboard cutout of Cliff Richard in an airport. Just a cardboard cutout. Sort of things you see in cinemas. You know, promotional material. And an airport was shut down over it. Whole airport was locked down over a cardboard cutout. And the guy who stole it is pictured on the front page of the Star. You dickhead. Anyway, good morning. How you doing? How are you doing? Are you well? Do I care? Of course, I wouldn't ask otherwise. Nice to know you're watching this crap. Good morning, Nick. Good morning, Jesus Jones, Manzi, to Yupkek, to Patricia. How you doing, Patricia? To Daz, to Martin, Ellen, to Joe Public. How you doing, Joe? Joe has a cup of tea watching this. Hi to the Dirty Purple herself, to Coca Bell. How you doing, Kinnell? How you doing, Flippin' L? How you doing, Sean Mack? To Matt in Western Massachusetts, to Sean, to Scotty Bolton, to Liz, to Jason, Gail, Anne Hughes. Good morning, Baldy Bollocks, and everyone. The mouse on you, Anne. The mouse on you. Good morning, Anne. Morning, Steve O'Neill, to Ellie Larkin. How you doing, Ellie? John Flynn there, to Daz, to Brian Crichton Clark. Brian, you posh bastard, you. I don't think we've ever had somebody with a double-barreled surname on the Richie Allen Show live stream super chat. Eh? Brian Crichton Clark. I bet you Brian has a plummy accent. Have you got a plummy accent there, Brian? Brian, thanks, mate. Nice to hear from you. Richie, how can one make a donation? PayPal, perhaps. The details to donate can be found at richieallen.co.uk, Brian. And thanks very much for considering supporting the show, mate. I really do appreciate it. Good morning, Jennifer Garcia. How you doing, Jennifer? Julie Walters, Evading Grid, Claire Bear, Mike Rocock. How you doing? Mike is in County Down. County Down. County Down, what about you? County Down. All my accents sound the same, don't they? I don't know. Worst impressionist of all time. Mr. Sin says, get the jab, Rich. The flu jab. I think I'll take a pass on that. Yeah. Gargle some lager, says Mike. Keith Allen to Threta Glumberg. I had an email from Threta yesterday. Cheers, mate. To Paul Burchill, to Ghost Gaming, to Edge TV, who's driving to Grimsby. Look after yourself. Graham Farmer, Paddy Dunn, Kevin Hansen, to EK. And that's it. I'm going to stop now. Because I do understand if you're listening back to this on the old podcast, you think, get on with it, pal. Get on with it, you fecker. Get on with it, you big baldy ignorant bastard. Hi to Richard Willett. How you doing, Rich? Filmmaker extraordinaire. Good morning, mate. Documentary filmmaker. A lot of time for Rich. To Stuart. And I'm going to stop now. All right. I'm going to... Byron Raver. We're on the road to nowhere. Love a bit of Talking Heads. Bit of Tina Weymouth. Love a bit of Tina Weymouth myself. Hi to Maureen. Lovely. Hi to Dan Des. Hi to Vincent McCooey. Dawn French does a brilliant County Down accent, apparently. County Down. Get on with it, you donut. Yeah, okay, I'll get on with it. I've been called worse in my time. So that's where we are then. I don't advocate violence. I really don't. I don't believe in violence. I don't. I've had occasion once or twice down the years to defend myself. Once from a reasonably serious attack. And I did defend myself, but I don't like violence. I abhor it, and I never green light it or say it's okay. I made a comment the other day about Andrea Leadsom, and I got a couple of emails from people saying that was fairly close to the bone. What I said was, and I was very clear about it, that Andrea Leadsom bemoaning people shouting at her in the streets and bemoaning people sending vile tweets and vile emails. My point was, it's going to get a lot worse for people like her in years. I wasn't advocating physical attacks on anybody. In fact, I condemned it and said to people, don't do it. But in years to come, in the months to come, when people see what's happening, as this agenda that we talk about often on programs like mine unfolds, it becomes increasingly more difficult for those behind the agenda to keep it hidden. So as more and more people realise it, they are going to be enraged and they will take to the streets. And a part of me thinks that the agenda also wants that to happen, because then they can provide the solution to that. And the solution to it is martial law. More RoboCop type police. You see RoboCop police officers now in airports, don't you? You see them in airports, you see them in train stations. They want to put that sort of policing into play to shut down dissent, ultimately. So I don't advocate it, but I see it coming as people become more and more despondent, as their lives get more and more difficult, and they have nothing to lose, is what I see coming down the line. But anyway, let's have a look inside the papers. I have my trusty tablet there if I need to read any of these stories. Good morning, Susan Hayward Tonkin. How you doing, Susan? Susan, I don't read the YouTube comments, but I'm in touch with Raj. Did you have a pop at me for my scathing commentary on the lynching story? Donald Trump was criticised for using the word lynching in describing the impeachment proceedings against him. And it might have been you, Susan. It might not have been. I'm just consistent, really, in my position, my stated position, that we can't allow one group of people to tell another group of people you shan't or shouldn't or can't or must not use certain words because it hurts us. I don't give a shit what ethnic group it is. Whether it's whites, whether it's Arabs, whether it's Asians, whether it's Hispanics, whether it's blacks, I couldn't care less. My position has been consistent. And I think Donald Trump is one of the biggest fucking idiots that ever walked the face of the earth. A very sinister man, Donald Trump. But I'm just being consistent here. We shouldn't ever say lynching because some black person might melt down. I couldn't give a shit. I never will. That's just who I am. It's not because I'm a bad person or because I'm stubborn or obtuse or whatever. I'm not. I'm just not having it. Everything is fair game. We should be able to speak about everything and anything. Free speech means free speech. Free speech doesn't mean free speech except. No, fuck that. I don't mean to swear at you, Susan. If it was you, by the way. Anyway. Be Jesus, huh? Will there be an election? It's hard to know. It's hard to know. The Labour Party doesn't want one. The reason the Labour Party doesn't want one is because 5 million Labour voters in the north of the country voted to leave the European Union because they know what the European Union is. And many of their Labour MPs have gone against them and have gone against their own constituency vote. Like that horrendous, I can't do it now because of my voice, Rebecca Long Bailey. Like her, for example. They are terrified of going back to the people now. Corbyn has got a safe enough seat there in Islington. Old Jezza, champagne socialist Jeremy Corbyn. Not even a socialist. So they're terrified, Labour, that they will suffer a defeat as bad as that which Michael Foot suffered back in 1983. And I'm a student of politics. I was very young in 1983, but I know all about Michael Foot and what happened to him and the absolute shellacking the Labour Party got back then. And I believe, I couldn't say that is how it would materialise next month, if there was an election. I don't know. But I know Labour fears it. Oh, they're petrified of it. We're going to get destroyed. Because in the heartlands, where manufacturing was destroyed by the European Union, and where free movement of people made it difficult for people who were competing for jobs, Labour has basically sold us out. That's what a lot of people think. I meet them in Salford. You know, I ask people all the time on my travels, and I'm very skilled at asking people in a way that makes them more likely to speak to me. I don't tell them I'm a journalist. I just get into just general conversation. And I hear people, this is Labour, this is people up here would consider themselves to be socialists, to be trade unionists. They are sick to death of Jeremy Corbyn and the Labour Party. So the Labour Party doesn't want a general election. Donald Tusk, there you are, he will tell European leaders, let's have the extension. Going nowhere. Ever. Stories about vulnerable groups dominate the newspapers these days. I know you're tired of me saying it because I say it quite a lot. And sexism and misogyny and racism, the stories are everywhere. This is good. This is in the Mail, but it's also on RT today. The Natural History Museum is branded sexist because too many of the animals on display are male. Sexist bastards. The natural... I don't know about you, but I'm cancelling my annual subscription. Is somebody going around getting down on their hands and knees underneath the glass display cases to look for a tallywhacker or the absence of a tallywhacker, taking notes and then melting down? The Natural History Museum is sexist. Everything is sexist. We need to accept you and me, particularly if we are white people, I think. Or even if we're not white, if we're just Christian people, we might be black Christians. We might have a common sense approach to these things. It's ironic, because I don't believe Christians are... And you can say what you want about me. I always tell you how I feel. I don't try and curry favour with you. I don't believe... I believe Christian and common sense is an oxymoron. It's not common sense for me to believe that a benevolent creator is watching us all in some sort of reality show and then choosing the best of us to join him in paradise. I think if you believe that, you're a bit fucking stupid, really. That's what I believe. Half your audience is gone. Well, that might be the case, but I've always said that. But I believe, these stories, they're everywhere. They are everywhere is what they are. I must have a drink. I've not got a drink here, have I? Oh, shite, I'll have to persevere. Can't believe I didn't bring any water. So there you are. But yeah, we're being conditioned to accept that ultimately everything is racist and everything is sexist. It all is. Everything. Every aspect of life. And even if we're not conscious of it, even if it's subconscious, it is racist and sexist. Everything we do has the potential. We know this because universities are saying to people now, you might not have been harassing to your fellow student. You might not have been, or you might not think that you were. But if he thinks or she thinks that you were, well, then it must be true. And this is the way it's going to be now in life in the future. Everything is racist. Everything. Told you in 50 years' time. Bollocks to that. In 5 years' time, conversations between people are going to take hours. I said this on the radio show 2 years ago and I got a lot of laughs. And I wasn't trying to be funny. Got a lot of laughs. It really resonated with people. 2-minute conversations are going to take hours in the future. Because you're going to be running things through your head. Can I say that now? Hang on now, let me just... what could be interpreted by, if I said that, could she think that I'm maybe being a bit racist or a bit misogynist? Hours, conversations taking hours. Madhouse. We live in a madhouse. Here's some good news. This fucking Egypt lost his case. This is Jessica Yaniv. Jessica wanted women to wax her balls. I know. I do this to wind you up. Because you always want to kill people who do that, right? This lunatic rocked up to a salon for a wax, and the women said, no thanks. I'd rather not wax your big, ignorant, ugly, rotten, hairy balls. And he said that he was being discriminated against. Apparently yesterday, a review board has found that the salon owners have no case to answer, basically. That this person is just a fucking idiot. Wax your own balls. There you are. It makes me sick, to be honest. Not trans people. Just the thought of waxing somebody's balls. So there you are. The British Columbia Human Rights Tribunal determined it is not a violation for a service provider to not wax a type of genitals they are not trained for or haven't consented to wax. How could you train somebody to wax balls? Holy Jesus. A friend of mine years ago had a testicle removed. Not because of testicular cancer, thank Christ. But he had something went wrong with one of his testicles. And it became toxic or poisoned or something. And he had to have it removed, God love him. And one of the most embarrassing things that I could ever imagine was the area had to be shaved. And he wasn't allowed to do it by himself because it wouldn't be surgically appropriate. It wouldn't be good enough for the surgical team. So a very fetching young nurse had to do it. And he said he didn't know where to put his fucking face while she was doing it. I could have made a suggestion or two. But yeah, dreadful stuff, yeah. Okay. Oh, be gone, huh? So Jessica Yaniv, you'll have to wax your own balls from now on, kid. I'm going to give one tiny bit of credit to Jessica Yaniv, because I think when you make programs like this, you've got to be totally honest and fair. To be fair to Jessica, he, and I'm not saying that to be hurtful or offensive, he hasn't been shy in doing interviews with people who would be very critical of him. And I admire that. I have great admiration for it, because particularly more and more we're seeing people turn down interviews. I've had 2 people this week refuse to do interviews with me because of national news stories that basically said that nobody should come on the Richie Allen radio show, because I used to have people like David Duke on the programme and people like Alison Shablow. This is a horrible world we're living in. It's very depressing for me. I've got a very thick skin, so I don't care on a personal level. But on another level, on a free speech level, it kills me to get emails from people who say, Richie, I've no problem with you, mate. You seem to be a fairly okay bloke, but if I come on your programme, I'll be destroyed. This is where we're going. Third party, guilt by third party association. Is that what you said to me last night in the email? Threat to Glumberg sent me an email. Shocking, isn't it? I've never denied the Holocaust or said that Jews weren't targeted and murdered. I've criticised those who have, but I've spoken to them. But people, I can't go on your show, Richie, because some crazy Zionist bastards in the UK said that if I go on your show, I'm some sort of apologist for anti-Semitism. So it's crazy. So I give due credit to Jessica for going on programs with people like me who would say, come on, Jessica, you're a fucking idiot. Great admiration for that. But I totally agree with the decision in British Columbia. If people don't want to wax your male genitalia, they shouldn't have to. And it's not discrimination. It's just their human right. I don't want to touch your hairy balls. Right. What about legalising drugs? What about county lines drug running and youngsters stabbing themselves to fucking death? Breaking Bad in the UK. Kids getting involved in drug running and murder. What about the notion, I mean, this isn't a new idea, we've had this over the years. What about this notion that if you simply legalised everything, you'd put these people out of business? I don't know if I'll get into this on the radio show tonight. I might do. I've got the wonderful Maria Heller coming on in the second hour to talk about Hillary Clinton, Tulsi Gabbard, and lots of interesting stuff like that. But when I go to speak to academics these days, it's becoming increasingly difficult for the reasons I just gave a second ago. Yeah, you've got a hugely popular radio show, Richie, but I don't know, I might get some stick if I appear with you. Anyway, I can't shout because I'm going to ruin my voice. Decriminalisation. So if you're caught with a modest amount of coke or heroin or hippie crack or whatever the fuck it is people take these days, you might get addiction support instead of getting arrested and charged. There's even been a call for pharmacies to hand out clean needles and doctors to be allowed to prescribe heroin on the NHS in special cases. I know some of you will be suspicious when you read this, but is it a logical step to take drug running out of the hands of vile, murderous, lunatic criminals who seem to be copying? Look, I'm not going to blame television now. Don't think Hayden Hewitt would fucking kill me. I'm not blaming television. But you see a lot of websites these days which show some of the most heinous crimes against humanity ever, committed by Mexican drug gangs, Colombian drug gangs. You wonder how much of this is going to eventually come into the UK, some of these unspeakable crimes. You know, it's bad enough people getting stabbed to death, but some of the stuff that's going on in Mexico, Jesus Christ, the cartels, right? So decriminalise maybe? I'd have to say, no, don't decriminalise. But what the hell do I know? I don't want people taking fucking heroin, you know, and cocaine. I don't want people taking crack. I see what crack does to people. I see it in Greater Manchester sometimes. You see emaciated people. I wouldn't like to see it decriminalised. Let me rephrase. I wouldn't like to see it legalised, but I also don't like to see addicts thrown into prison. I don't like that. I don't think prison is a place for somebody who's coming to terms with, you know, a fairly unshakable addiction to a very, very addictive substance. I don't think prison is the place for them, to be honest. I never have done. But what the hell do I know? So that's a story that's non-Brexit, because, I mean, it's a nice, refreshing effing change, isn't it? Not to be talking about Brexit. This is interesting. Frances Leader, great lady, comes on the Richie Allen show. The Richie Allen show. Let me just unhide one or two comments there. Someone called Mega Tree Rat says, "You know fuck all, Richie." I've said so much I have no idea to what you referred this morning. So there you are. Rather than tell me that I know fuck all, why don't you give me a counter opinion? That might be more constructive, rather than say you know fuck all, because I'm sure there are things about which I know fuck all, but at least give me the heads up as to which particular thing you think. This is interesting. The government lied over fracking cleanup. Really? The government lied about a lot of things. The government lied about the amount of employment that fracking would bring to towns, didn't it? The government lied about the ease with which shale gas could be taken from the ground, didn't it? The government lied about the environmental impact of fracking, didn't it? The government just lied, full stop. This is very interesting. It's in the Times today. I won't get deep into it now because time is moving on and I've got to move on. But it's a good story. Francis will be interested in that, no doubt. If you go for an interview these days, if you have a plummy accent, you're more likely to get the job. There you are. I don't know if that's because the plummier the accent, the less coherent the candidate is. Meaning that the interview panel might not understand a fucking word that plummy accent is actually saying, but might be moved by the perceived poshness of said plummy candidate into sufficiently moved into saying, oh, well, he's obviously a jolly good chap. Let's give him the job. So yeah, if you got a plummy accent and 7 words, you've got a better chance. Yeah, you get a plummy accent, you'll do well. Allegedly. Voters want to avoid more delay, says the Times. That's the last Brexit story of the morning. That's their own poll, by the way. Do you want Johnson's deal approved so we can get out by Halloween? Yes, 54%. No, 46%. That's the Times. Let's move on to this Telegraph story about Tony Blair. And it is by Philip Johnston. It is by Philip Johnston. Let me go through some of the comments in a minute before I finish up. Lots of them coming in. Philip Johnston. Let me bring it up there for you now on the old tablet there, you know. Be Jesus, huh? Be Jesus, I said. So the headline there is fairly self-explanatory. Blair's reckless population explosion sowed the seeds of Brexit, though few will now admit it. This might be comfort reading for every man and woman in the country who was accused of xenophobia when they talked about migration. That's the way it's been. People have been accused of racism and xenophobia when they have criticised the successive government policy to go along with the European Union's plans and to allow free movement of people as more countries join the European Union. The greatest failure of modern governance was to encourage, you can see it there, mass immigration to the UK and to fail to prepare for the impact it would have. It is at the root of much that afflicts the nation today, from the agony of Brexit to the near terminal pressure on the National Health Service and the housing crisis, with all its attendant consequences. As figures from the Office for National Statistics confirmed this week, the last 20 years has seen the population rise faster than at any time in history. Now, we've talked about this on the radio show. Even though the rate of increase has slowed, the population is due to hit 70 million within a decade. Talked about that yesterday. Fueled predominantly by immigration, either directly or by the children of recent arrivals. This is at a time when population growth should have stalled or even gone into reverse. Indeed, just a few decades ago, that was precisely what state planners thought would happen. Yeah, really. If we go back and look at the official projections for what might happen to the population, we can see how wrong they were. And that article goes on to talk again about the legacy of Tony Blair and Tony Blair's government and what happened during that time between 1994, now he came to power in 1997, and 2004, and what his government did not do to protect jobs, manufacturing, public services in the country. Again, it's something I could go on and on and on about here, but I won't do. It's an excellent bit of writing by Daniel Johnston in the Telegraph this morning. People's concerns about the impact of unfettered migration to this country were not born out of their dislike or distaste of the other types of people, people of colour, people from Eastern Europe. No, they knew what was happening. This is where I bore you to tears, because I've said it to you 1,000 times. This is why traditionally in the 70s and 80s, socialists were the most vocal critics of freedom of movement and the impact it would have on people's ability to get a job in or near their own community. Socialists, not right-wingers, not right-wing haters and all of that bullshit. 'Twas socialists. Socialists. Indeed. 10 past 10. The old voice is holding up, although my throat is very sore now. It is very sore, I tells you. It is very sore. Look, thanks for all these tweets, yeah? Not tweets, all these messages. Lots of them. About Jessica Yaniv, it seems, by the way. Good morning to my pal, Jean Ann. Always got an interesting perspective, Jean Ann. Jessica does that because he is completely addicted to publicity. The badder, the better even. I think Jean Ann is saying that the reason Jessica takes interviews with people who profoundly disagree with him is for the publicity. You might be right. I'll concede that. But, you know, it is a rare thing. They don't want to talk to you, Jean, and they block you. This McKinnon cyclist blocked the Richie Allen Show Twitter account. I've never sent a tweet to Rachel McKinnon. Rachel Riley, the countdown person, the Jewish girl. Well, she says she's Jewish. Blocked the Richie Allen Show account. I've never sent a tweet or addressed Rachel Riley. It's a rotten, scary, terrifying world we live in. It works so well for those who would impose this creeping fascism on us, this totalitarian stampede. It works well for them. It's a wonderful set of new circumstances. We scream as loud as we bloody like about somebody or something, but then we block them and we prevent them from addressing us or disagreeing with us or engaging us. This is the scariest paradigm of all. Now, I've got thick skin, so I don't care if some fucking bimbo who might have a mathematical brain, I don't know, who presents a daytime quiz show. I don't care if she thinks I'm anti-Semitic. I couldn't give a fuck. Because I'm not, so it doesn't matter. But what I do care about is they're framing everything now in a way that things can be said, put into the public domain. Things can be claimed. But with no right of reply to those people being accused or being portrayed in a certain way. No right of reply. You are an effing this and you are an effing that. Block, 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 block. So you don't even know what's been said about you. So you don't have a chance to defend yourself or to explain yourself, even if you wanted to. Now, I don't want to defend myself and I don't want to explain myself. I don't care about these people. It's a wider issue. So Yaniv, this trans person, might very well be a publicity hound, Jean Ann. You might very well be onto something there. But at least you can fucking speak to the person, right? At least you can say, hang on a second there, you know. You think I'm transphobic? Well, fair play to you. At least you're chatting to me. At least we can have a conversation. These are crazy times. And the last thing I'm going to talk about today is this. I've invited Professor Kehinde Andrews on the radio show multiple times. Multiple times. And on multiple occasions, Professor Kehinde Andrews, while opening my email, because I know he's opened it, hasn't had the courtesy to send me a reply. Not even, fuck you, I don't want to go on your radio show, you baldy gammon. No, I'd appreciate that. I'd say fair play to you. Just fucking ignores me, right? There are not tens of thousands of racist incidents at university. There are not. This is a lie. It is a monumental lie. But worse still, it is a fucking dangerous lie that is going unchallenged in the media today. An inquiry by the Equality and Human Rights Commission found that tens of thousands of students are being racially abused at universities and nobody's doing anything about it. It's a lie. It's a lie! People are not being racially abused anywhere because the UK is not a racist society. Not inherently. Not now, not ever. Minorities have never had it so fucking good. in this country. But this is never ending, this. Look at it. Black people at university are being racially abused. No, they're not. To accept these statistics, you must first understand that there has been no in-depth analysis of any of these claims. Michael. Yeah. You're a black man, Michael. Yes, I am. Michael, were you abused on campus? Yes, I was. Thank you. Tick. What happened, Michael? No. None of that. What happened, Michael? It's as banal and as benign as some white guy walking down a fucking corridor listening to music by a rap artist and maybe muttering the N-word, nigger is the word, let's just say it, under his breath. And a black guy might have heard it. Racist. Racism these days is often defined as not accepting racism. I had an email from a black guy. He refused to come on the programme. He said, you're racist because you don't accept that racism exists. What? I disagree with you, so I'm racist. Yes. Yes! You say it doesn't exist, so you're a racist. We don't have racism in this country. Are there people in the country in various places? Are there men and women who look at black people and think, they're not the same as us? We are more intelligent. We are better. They probably are. That's genuine racism. Have you just contradicted yourself, Richie? Well, no, not really, because you're talking about a tiny minority. The guy who goes to the football game and makes the monkey noises, you can't convince me he's racist until I know a little bit more about him and what he does, where he lives, what he says, what he subscribes to, how he conducts himself in public. Obviously outside of a football stadium, I take your point, but I don't know. I would write him off as a fucking idiot before writing him off as a racist. Racist is somebody who believes something that's fairly sinister, that you are less worthy, you are less of a human being than he is. Now, there aren't too many of those people who look at black people and go, subspecies. There aren't. Because we all know that's bollocks. We're all the same. A pair of eyes, a nose, a pair of lungs, a tallywhacker or a vagina, legs, ankles, Adam's apple or not, brain, same size. We're all the same. We're all the same. We're one, but we're not the same. The only thing that's different is the colour of our skin. So there isn't tens of thousands of racist incidents happening at university. I've invited academics on to talk about it, but ironically, we can't talk to you because, well, we think that you've interviewed racists in the past. I'm out of here. I'm out of here. Fucking lunatic asylum. Thanks for all your lovely messages and the not so lovely ones. John Roherty. John in NYC in New York. How you doing, John? Waxing balls would be a great Benny Hill skit. I loved when Benny would do funny drag. Benny Hill would have had a field day with a lot of the things that are going on right now. So would Kenny Everett. God rest his soul. One of the funniest blokes ever on British television, Kenny Everett. Funny to think back how everybody loved Kenny Everett. You know, we're gaslit. We are gaslighted all the time. We are told that we are this homophobic, nasty race of fuckers. And yet in the 1980s, Kenny, it was known that Kenny was gay. People loved him. Catholic Irish people turning Kenny on a Friday night on the BBC, laughing their arses off. We loved Freddie Mercury. We knew Freddie was gay. We loved Elton John. We loved the music, still do love a lot of Elton John's music. We know that Elton John is gay. We don't hate Elton because he's gay. We hate him because he's a fucking diva. He's a prick. But we love him. Gaslighting people all the time. You're homophobic. You're racist. We love Marvin Gaye. We love Michael Jackson. We love Beyonce. We love Whitney Houston. Love their music. There's no real racism. Not anymore, there's not. There used to be, but not anymore. We don't care. People, what people look like, couldn't give a fucking shit, to be honest. your criteria these days for somebody's worthiness is, you know, I've said it before, does he get his round in? Is he a nice bloke? That's about the size of it. Fuck. Gonna take some more honey. And I'll speak to you later on. Until then, enjoy the rest of your Wednesday. See you later. Bye now. Bye.